opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Yes, coming to you cordless, everybody. It's Thursday night, September 4th, 2025. I'm Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is show number 279. No, 271. Where did I pull that figure out? Wishful thinking, probably. Mark your scorecards. There'll be a test someday. Our guest tonight, we have two guests tonight. JOHN TAMNY is here. He's the editor of RealClearMarkets.com and also works, he's one of the economics editors for Forbes. He's written a book called The Deficit Delusion, and we've taped this afternoon. This is a really fascinating discussion. His premise is that the reason we have deficits and debt that's so high isn't because we're not taxing enough, or like a lot of people said, if we lowered the tax, we would increase the revenue. He thinks the problem is actually that we have too much revenue already coming in, which is kind of counterintuitive. You think, well, if we have too much money coming in, how come we're not paying this down? But you have to listen to what he has to say, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the reason I want to have him on, because this is a topic that's kind of dear to my heart, because it's like I'm thinking, well, the republic's going to collapse at some point because we have $37 trillion in debt. And he said, people on Wall Street are very comfortable with it going to 50 trillion. They are. And he's right. I know that's true. Anyway, he's going to be here. And then later on, we're going to be talking to BRIAN REISINGER. He was here last month. He's written a book called Land Rich, Cash Poor. He's a family farmer, or actually technically his family's in family farming. He's kind of, although he helps out, he's kind of gotten out. But the paperback version of his book came out on Tuesday, 2 days ago. So we're welcoming him back too, because he's a really great guy and it's a really good book, and you guys should read it. So that's what we got going on tonight. So let me tell you what we got going on this coming week. Well, tomorrow we're running Best Of. Now on Fridays, we run a Best Of episode. And yeah, my friends say, yeah, you're pulling a Carson. Yeah, I am. Yeah, that's right. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we are running in our live time slot, 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday nights. Now we're running a rerun. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a rerun, and that's what we're doing. And I don't know which one is. I haven't picked it yet, but yeah, it'll be there. So we got five nights a week, but yeah, one isn't live. Yeah. So now Monday, we have a guy named Don Wilkie coming on. He's written a book called Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System. I'd be honest, I don't know what the book's about yet. I don't. I got the weekend to study up. So he's coming on Monday. Tuesday, we have a really interesting show. Not that they're all really interesting, but this one's as interesting as any. The guys from the Ukraine show are coming on. Now, Jonathan Lockwood is a regular here. He comes on regularly. He's kind of our military expert. He's kind of the General Keane of Jim Peters at Night. General Keane's the expert on Fox News, and he fills the same role here. So not only does he come on regularly, but if there's some military action in the world, he basically bring him on ASAP. That's basically what the role he fills here right now, and he's fantastic at it. Former U.S. Army colonel, military historian, published 2 books. One of those books is used as a textbook at the military academy. The guy knows his shit, man. He knows his stuff. So he's one of the 3 guys on the Ukraine show. The other 2 guys are Ivan Kirchenko and Sasha Starr. And the reason this show is so popular and gets so much buzz is because Ivan's actually in the Ukraine. Yeah, they do this twice a week. I think it's Mondays and Thursdays, if I'm right. And so it's the war about it's the war of Ukraine from the Ukraine. That's the actual reason the show is so popular and gets so much buzz. So Ivan's in the Ukraine. Sasha Starr is in Toronto, but he's Ukrainian himself. And so Jonathan's in Washington, D.C. So they got these three guys, and they do this show. They do it twice a week. All three of them are coming on to talk about what they're doing on Tuesday. That'll be pretty cool. Wednesday night, I'm taking off. My mother's 101 years old, and at the assisted living facility, they're having the fall festival, and I'm going. If your mother was 101, you'd go too, especially because if I don't go, she's going to kick my ass, and she will. This is getting ridiculous at this point. My mother's the oldest person in this facility, and she's bitching and moaning about all the old people about the fact that they don't do anything, and she's got a point because she does a lot. She's still fully functioning, and if you go on Facebook on their Facebook page, all these social activities they have, she's in every picture. So it's ridiculous. But it's really true. My mother will kick my ass if I don't show up. So we're all showing up. That's Wednesday. I'm taking the night off. We'll run a best of then too. I don't know what's going on. Thursday, Tim Conaway, our old friend, the former executive editor of Hustler magazine, he's going to join us to talk about life and times. That's always interesting. He always brings up some old story of the past because we're all old men. Not you, of course. I mean me and him. That's what we got going on here. So in 12 seconds, we're going to introduce you to John Tamney. So stay tuned, please. Joining us from Washington, D.C., John Tamney. I got that right.
Yes.
He's the editor of RealClearMarkets.com. And hold on just a second, John. I lost all your stuff. That's not good. Here it is. All right. And your book is called The Deficit Delusion, Why Everything Left, Right, and Supply Side Tells You About the National Debt is Wrong. And so I have a lot of economists on the show because I'm a frustrated economist. So I have to I got to be honest. I'm not certain I agree with you on all this, but the real thing is I'm not even certain I understand where you're coming from. So that's what you have to explain. And believe it or not, the show isn't about me. It's about you. We want to know what you think. So, we're $37 trillion in debt, and we're running deficits of $4 to $7 trillion a year. What's the problem here?
The problem is too much revenue now and in the future. That's why we have all the debt. If you look at individuals, when were you able to borrow more, when you were 18 or at your present age? I'm sure at your present age because you have better income prospects now and in the future. Businesses are no different. When Uber was a new company, it gave away 20% of itself of equity for $11 million. Today, it's got $11 billion in debt. What's the difference? Well, the difference is markets trust its future a lot more than they did in 2011, so they lend rather than take equity. Well, governments are no different. They can't just borrow. They can't just borrow because they've spent more than they've taken in. You have to have a promising future, as in you must have access to taxpayers who are very prosperous. The U.S. has access to the most prosperous taxpayers in the world, way too much access. Hence all the debt. If they had less access to all this prosperity, there'd be very little debt. We have a too much revenue problem, not a debt problem.
I totally agree with you. I'm totally with that. The problem with America is we're too awash in money. That's basically what I think, my personal thing. And also, I have to correct you a little bit here. You said that we can't borrow all that money, but we do. But what you're really saying is we shouldn't, right?
Yeah, no, of course. But let's be clear here. It's not that we're awash in money. We're awash in prosperity. And any government that's got taxable access to all the prosperity can borrow with ease. But you're absolutely right, and I want to be clear about this.
And also, I want to. You were absolutely right too. You just said in better words what I was trying to say. That's correct.
Yeah. The scandal is not the debt itself. The scandal is that the markets keep telling all these debt warriors, left, right, supply side, libertarian, that the debt's going to be the easy part to pay off. That's the scandal, that we're so overtaxed that 37 trillion is nothing to the markets, and they're on the verge of taking us up to 50 trillion and beyond, because they know Treasury will continue to have way too much taxable access to immensely productive people. So yeah, we'll lend to them, the US, all day. It's tragedy.
Well, but I mean, do you, at some point, is all this debt going to come back to bite us in the ass?
Well, that's what they've been saying for years, and the markets keep rejecting that point of view.
That's
I mean,
right.
ask yourself the question, in 1980, total federal debt was $900 billion, and it cost Treasury 11% to borrow for a 10-year at that time. What if you had told the experts, what if you told the economists who come on your show in 1980, hey, guess what? 900 billion, we're going 3 times that. By 2025, we'll be at 37 trillion. What would they have said? They would have said, no way possible. If we ever got to that point, we're going to be Weimar Germany. The dollar will be worthless, all these different things. Except for during that time, treasuries and borrowing costs have plummeted. And so what does that tell you? It's the market saying that the most owned income stream in the world, U.S. treasuries, so the most informed market in the world, thinks that 37 trillion is nothing, that we can go much, much higher in the future, and we can, because Treasury collects too much revenue.
What do you think the solution is to this then?
Well, it's a great
you tax less?
Well, yes, but let's be clear about that. People ask me, so do you have legislation in mind? I don't. And let me explain why. Legislation is an effect of changing minds in the voting populace in the country. I want to change the point of view. If you look at conservatives and libertarians, what do they always say? We don't have a debt problem, we have a spending problem. That implies that markets are stupid, that, oh yeah, just keep going over and over. Someone's always gonna be there to lend you. But they don't lend to Russia. Russia's got 300 billion in total debt. They don't lend to Peru and Haiti. They don't lend to most countries. And so we've got to change the minds of people where they say, oh yeah, of course we have tons of debt, because our treasury shamefully, and to our economic detriment, to the economic detriment of every American, has way too much access to the wealth created by the rich. That's because when you finally convince people of what's true, that this is why we have the debt, you can then say that a tax on the rich is a tax on everyone, that leaves a huge burden to future generations in the form of a much bigger government and a less evolved society. And until we massively reduce the take of rich wealth, we're going to have this problem for all of our lives and beyond.
So there's, my problem with people who say we need to tax the billionaires is there's only 1,300 billionaires in the United States. And even if you tax them a reasonable amount, you're not going to raise that much revenue relative to the size of the federal government. I mean, am I right about that? I mean,
you're 100% right. But let's clarify something. Markets are a look into the future, and that's what I keep making the point of in my book. In one of the chapters, I talk about Sam Altman, the Chat GPT guy.
By the way, we'll put your book on the screen here. There it is.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. And so, but Altman and his crowd, they have this text chain going where they're making a bet. When will the first one-man unicorn reveal itself? And so what they're saying is that soon enough, and it won't be far away, there will be one-man businesses worth over $1 billion.
I've been saying this for a long time, but go ahead. Yeah.
So you know exactly where we're going then. It's not about all the wealth that billionaires have today. Markets are all seeing, and they see a future that Sam Altman sees, that the billionaires of tomorrow are going to be the millionaires of today, that there's going to be a surge of immense wealth, and with that, a surge of immense tax revenue collection that is going to make the 37 trillion and beyond seem small by comparison. Markets are saying that's the future, and that's what they've been saying all along. Yet left, right, supply side, liberty, they keep focusing on the debt, and the markets keep telling them, look, the debt's the easy part. The yields on treasuries keep going down. Y'all no problem paying that off. But what you can't get back, it's like if you don't sell a hotel room, you can't get that night back.
Yeah.
You can never get back the progress that didn't happen, the cancer forms that weren't cured, the transportation advances that didn't happen, the technological advances that would render the smartphone and the internet primitive by comparison. You can't get the days lost not improving on that back due to all this waste.
We're the most prosperous country on earth, and yet you're absolutely right. It's how do you convince people that we could be even more prosperous, that we're actually even cutting ourselves off? How do you, because I mean, that's even one of the reasons I do the show. How do you convince people of this?
Well, but think about what you're doing. And this is why I think what you're doing, and I don't mean this in a patronizing way. You're one of the few people who are willing to do that, to talk about what could be, that realistically we're Bangladesh compared to what we could be. See, everyone talks about this and they say, well, yeah, if you do something with the tax code or something like this, you'll get more GDP. People are so sick of that because they don't understand it. You've got to talk in terms of what could be, that we haven't scratched the surface of our potential. And evidence supporting that claim is the fact that markets say 37 trillion in debt is nothing. We'll take you up to 50 because we know you're good for it. What a comment on the progress we're losing.
I was reading your Twitter feed, your X feed, which I found fascinating, and that's the reason I got to be honest. Some of it I didn't understand. I guess I'm a simple mind, But you did spend a little time talking about AI and robots now, and I have a lot of AI people on this show because people have really divergent opinions on how this is going. I mean, on the one hand, there's people who think this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to humanity, and then there's one thing that's going to kill us, and those are the two extremes. And I'm under the impression you're under the side this is going to be more beneficial than harmful, correct?
Well, it has to be. Whatever replaces human effort frees up immense amount, not just of human effort, but also it unearths skills that the market's never rewarded before. I mean, what if you and I had been born 200 years ago? What awful lives we would have led.
Oh,
you and I wouldn't be able to do what we do because there were no tractors yet and fertilizer.
Yeah, that's right.
I would have been a loser.
Yeah. Well, I'd be with you. You and I would be in jail. That's where we'd be.
We would have died because we couldn't have fed ourselves.
Right.
And so how could it be bad? Show me where in the world where investment follows the past as opposed to the future. Anything that erases human effort's got to be good, right?
But here's the counter argument, John. It's like, so you were talking about robots. So now there's a Chinese company that says next year they're going to be selling AI robots, humanoid robots, that actually can walk around your factory for $6,500 a pop. My problem with that is that machine actually does replace a person. It's not like
Amen.
It's not. Yeah. So okay.
The tractor is the biggest replacer of humans in the history of mankind. Thank goodness for it. And let's point out about those humanoid robots. Who is renting them right now to the extent that they can? It's businesses, and they're not doing it to lay off their existing workers. They're doing it to retain their existing workers. As in, we're going to use these things to remove all the distasteful aspects from it. And so you think about this too, though, because I know that you and I agree. It's not just these one-man unicorns. These robots are going to amplify human capacity to produce on a level that we've never seen before. And see, markets have to price in everything. We're going to think of the revenue surge in the future and how unfortunate that is if Treasury's collecting more and more, and because it's collecting more and more, able to borrow more and more.
Yeah.
We've got to stop this. So we've got to begin the discussion now of saying that, guys, all this stuff that you're worried about, the debt and all this stuff, you're worried about symptoms. You're not focused on the real problem. Too much tax revenue now, and very dangerous, exponentially more in the future.
And you're absolutely right about the fact that we have all this prosperity, it's the false impression that therefore we can borrow more.
But we can.
We can.
And that's the problem.
Right. That's the problem. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like you and I'm totally on board with what you're talking about here, completely. But yeah, except that you say it better than I do. That's all. Which is I'm glad you're here.
This is my life's work. I'm so behind this, and I love when people say, "I don't really get what you're saying. I think you're onto some." Thank goodness, and I'm not just sitting here giving me a hug, but I've been hearing the same stuff from left, right, supply side libertarians for decades. They've been saying the same thing year after year, and the markets keep mocking them. At some point, we've got to enter something new into the bloodstream of the argument, which has become really stale.
And you are right about the fact that the market is talking. I mean, it's the same like the betting markets. You want to get some, go to Polymarket and you'll pretty much figure out anything you need to know about anything. It's amazing. People put their money where their mouth is. I mean, that's all there is to it. And yeah, so I'm totally with your theory here about the fact we have two. Our prosperity is kind of blinding us to the fact that we have the. All right.
No, I know what you're saying. It's blinding us.
That's the problem. You say it better than I do.
We could be much more prosperous. It's hiding from us a much better existence that we could have, but it's also enabling what is sapping a much better existence. A government that grows by the day, that can borrow more and more because the world knows that we're the safest bet in town. Yeah. We've got to change this discussion and talk about what could be, so that people realize that a tax on Elon Musk is arguably a bigger tax on them than it is on Elon Musk.
Absolutely. And you mentioned as an offhand comment on one of your X posts about the fact that you thought that Doge, at least up to now, was a failure. And I basically agree with you, because it seems like it's like they started out with good intentions, but they're not really doing what they set out to do. And I don't know if that's because they can't, if they're being hobbled. I mean, what's going on there? Do you have any idea?
Well, I would say to you, and it's made explicit in the book, but I think you would agree, Doge failed before it began, not because the intentions weren't good, but because Elon Musk, like everyone else, assumes we have a spending problem. And we do, but the spending problem is a symptom of too much revenue now and too much tax revenue in the future. So let's say he'd succeeded and cut $2 trillion from government. That's what he said he was going to do.
Right.
I think I could convince you to say, well, so what? That's going to lead to bigger government, and here's why. Was Congress going to burn up the $2 trillion saved? Or was Congress going to take the $2 trillion and find all new ways, all new programs to invest in or place money with to expand government even more? Let's not forget that Medicare began as a $3 billion program.
Yeah.
And so I make a case in the book that the penultimate chapter in the book says, whatever you do not allow them to reform Social Security and Medicare. And my thinking here is basic. If they, in fact, succeed in reforming it, which I don't think they will be, suddenly Congress has got trillions to throw at new programs. I don't want that to happen. I want the waste cordoned off into two areas, and then the third area, let them spend it on paying back the debt, because that limits new ideas, but it also gives people like you and me the time to change some minds and say, guys, we're not looking at this the right way. We have a too much revenue problem. Until we recognize this, it's going to grow and grow.
All right, John, let's say you're God, okay, or you're king. How do you actually solve this problem? Because I think you're alluding to basically a basic human foible, and that is if people have money, they're going to spend it. Yeah,
well, certainly politicians are human.
Right. That's right.
If you give them lots of revenues now, but better yet, you give them the expectation of revenues going up.
Right.
They will spend and borrow. And let's be clear, those with access to wealth will lend to them because they know they'll put some of their wealth in the sure thing, which is it being paid back. And so to me, the only way to do it is not just hey, let's cut taxes. As in, I want to cut taxes on the rich so substantially that the revenue from them plummets. And in plummeting, you do two things. You signal to investors that the U.S. is interested in just paying off the existing debt. It's not interested in getting any more. You don't want to lend to plummeting revenue. And in the process, I want to get there by having this discussion that, oh, wow, what a mistake to take away the most crucial wealth of all, the wealth of the rich. Elon Musk's got all this money to invest in new ideas. And so you reduce that burden. All the while, Elon Musk can't buy more houses. What choice does he have but to invest in the craziest people on earth, the borderline nut jobs that will take us from the richest nation on earth to a nation that once again makes the present look Bangladesh by comparison.
What do you think of what's going on in New York City about the fact they're about to elect basically a communist as mayor? I mean, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Okay, let me see if you agree. I think the surest sign of abundant wealth and prosperity is people like Mamdani. As in, if you and I were made king, there'd be Mamdamis all over the country, and it'd be a sign that we're doing a good job. That's the first thing.
I do totally agree with you on this.
Yeah,
right.
Wealth begets what's the word? It starts with it. Wealth begets the demagogues against wealth. I mean, that's just basic.
I think it also begets amnesia too. There's that also.
Well, there's that too, but that's our job. The other thing is, oh, come on. People who move to New York, I don't care. Even if they're socialists, they're ambitious. They don't like government markets. They don't. Mamdani couldn't make New York City socialist even if he wanted to. And he couldn't because the people, I always say to people that the Americans who move to New York City are more immigrant than the immigrants that cross borders to get here.
Yeah.
As you know, I see that beautiful skyline behind you. New Yorkers love prosperity and achievement more than anything else. And the idea that this one mayor could bring them down, and so many people from our side are saying he's going to ruin New York. Oh, he's not strong enough to. New York will run over him.
No, John, in reality, he won't get anything done. Nothing will happen.
He won't. New Yorkers love their prosperity too much, and they're just too ambitious.
Also, the other thing is, I think personally, he's too inexperienced to actually know how to do anything. But there's that too. He's not going to be able to institute what he wants to do, you know. So okay. So if the problem is access to too much funds, if you're going to cut, first of all, if you're going to cut taxes, how much do you cut them?
Quite honestly, and I you're one of the few people I think will see it my way. I'm to the point that I don't think even a 1% tax rate on the rich would make sense. I think it'd be too much. Because think about the wealth of the present and the future. A 1% tax rate on that is going to fund an enormous sized government. It's going to enable easy borrowing.
Yeah.
We're not just any country. We're the country populated by the world's most talented people. And so it's not enough to say, well, if we can just get down to this rate. I believe we've got to, in this discussion, start having the discussion that there's just a max that anyone can pay, that it's damaging to everyone if they pay more than that max.
Yeah, but getting back to the thing about you being God. So, oh, Jesus, I just lost my train of thought. It's terrible. That happens with age, John. Don't get old.
That's right.
About you being God. Oh, Jesus Christ. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, it's terrible. It's awful.
Oh, it's you'll think of it, but it is this idea. It's got to be that it's not enough for me to go all Ayn Rand on you and say that why should Jeff Bezos pay more taxes than I do? Although I feel that way. It's more that if he's paying even $1 billion a year in taxes, or 500 million or 100 million, that's a tax on me, and I don't want it. It's a tax on progress. We have got to greatly reduce what he hands over so that future crazies like Jeff Bezos can be matched with capital to expand on what he's achieved.
Yeah. Bezos is already paying too much in taxes.
Way too much. That's why we have the debt. Right. Yeah. And the expectation is the people who will eventually stand on his shoulders and he's investing in right now will pay even more.
Okay,
And
but how do you convince the public that the richest guy in America should pay less money? How do you do that?
I think I think if everyone saw our conversation today, they'd start to grasp it. It would be slow,
I hope so.
but it's about gradually changing the conversation. The accepted wisdom now is that the rich, for being rich, owe exponentially more than we do.
Yeah.
Let's change that discussion and let's make it conventional wisdom that, wait a second, that's harming them the least. It's harming those beneath them the most. And oh, by the way, it's expanding the size of government that everyone inherits, and it's reducing progress on an order that we'll never quite understand, because you can't point out what didn't happen. You can't point out the cancer cures that didn't happen, the transportation advances, the technological advances. It's our job to change minds. And the problem is very few people see it the way we do it, but we owe it to ourselves to change minds.
Now I remember what I was going to ask you earlier. So, okay, so if Doge is basically more or less has failed, how do you make government smaller? How do like, I mean, I know how I would do it, but the thing is, Trump is kind of trying to do that. You know, I think you could fire. There's 2 million people working for the federal government non-militarily. I think you could fire half of them and not see any disruption in any services at all.
I don't disagree with any of that, but you're once again freeing up a bunch of money that they're going to find some way to spend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I never thought of that. You're absolutely right. That's right.
And that's what I keep saying about spending cuts. They paradoxically lead to bigger government.
Yeah, they do.
I argue in the book that Social Security, Medicare reform will just they'll free up trillions of dollars for them to dream up new programs. And so again, I'm saying Musk has it backwards, that as long as he's focusing on spending cuts, he's missing the real story, which is too much tax revenue now, too much in the future. Until you focus on that, you're lost.
I totally agree with you here, but the thing is, what do you do? I'm too stupid. I wouldn't know how to handle this. I mean, you're absolutely right. Spending cuts are going to lead to bigger government. So how do you? I can't wrap my mind around the problem.
Well, what's the old saying? Rome wasn't built in a day. I have no illusions that people are going to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, that whack job in DC, John Tamnny, is right. But I do believe that I'm going to make this my life's work, and that I'm going to gradually convince people that we're looking at this profoundly backwards. And because we are, government and the debt continue to grow. So maybe it's time to look at this the way he does. And then you are convinced, and you will convince other people. It's a slow process. But see, right now we have the time to fix it. We've got decades, really, because at least for now, Medicare, Social Security, and interest on the debt are taking up more and more of federal revenues.
Yeah.
So we've got time, as those three things take up more and more of Congress's ability to waste money and start new programs. That gives us our time to change the narrative that we got to this point because of too much tax revenue, and the debt will only grow if we allow the tax revenue to continue to grow. So it's a long process, but it's a worthwhile process because we're correct.
Are you philosophically opposed to Social Security and Medicare?
I am, but that I am is not the point. They're there, and I'm saying, yeah, Social Security is the dumbest retirement system I think anyone could ever come up with. But it's there, and if you reform it, you're just freeing up trillions of dollars for new really bad ideas. These are two bad ideas that we already know exist. Let them be, don't reform them. And instead of that, let them swallow up more and more of revenue inflows as people around us start to change the conversation whereby we ask, how did we get to this point? Oh, we got to this point because we're massively overtaxing the most productive people in society.
Okay, so the skyline behind me is Minneapolis. So I'm here in Minneapolis. I'm in the heart of the country. And there's 340 million people in the United States right now. The one problem I foresee in what you're talking about is that you're talking about we are the most productive nation on earth. True. We even have untapped potential. True. but there's a lot of people in the United States that I would argue aren't really contributing anything. And so are we looking, and maybe this is like beyond the purview of your book, but are we looking at a divide, a class divide between the rich and the haves and the have-nots?
I don't think so, because what do the world's poorest who risk their lives to get to the United States, where do they go? Do they go to Flint and Milwaukee? Or do they go to the richest parts of America because they know that where the richest are, where it's most unequal, opportunities greatest? People know.
You're right.
People know, they get it, they see through that. And then I will add, and I wrote about it last Saturday, precisely because robots and AI are poised to wipe out a lot of jobs, that's the surest signal that the jobs of the future are going to so resemble the unique skills and intelligence of everyone, of a greater number of people. I reject that there are dumb people. I wrote a book about this called The End of Work. I reject that there are lazy people.
I'm sorry, what was the book called?
Called The End of Work. I had titled it The End of Laziness, but I was making the point that everyone's talented, but just like if you and I had been born 200 years ago, our talent would have been suffocated. Today we get to showcase it.
Yeah.
And so with this evolution, this erasure of the worst aspects of work, talent is going to reveal itself in ways that people before never imagined. I think of Minneapolis. When you guys last hosted the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots, among other things, brought 3 sleep coaches with them. Their job was to help maximize athlete performance by maximizing their performance when they're in bed, as in sleeping.
Uh-huh.
You have people who literally earn tens of thousands a month by downloading their sleeping process onto YouTube every night. And people they subscribe to it.
Yeah.
People download themselves playing video games and making the 7 figures. This is where we're headed. So the class divide, inequality is going to grow. That's a beautiful thing, because that's the democratization of access to goods and services. But it can only grow in concert with more and more people getting to do for a job, a well-paid job, what they can't not do, what they love passionately. And so I think where we're headed is where people are going to fall. Sundays won't be awful anymore, and Mondays will be great because they'll be back at work, and they'll be working all the time because they're so in love with their jobs. And this will be thanks to the ongoing automation of the work of the past.
You're a very, very smart man. And I'm not just bullshitting you here. It's like, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I hope you come back.
Anytime. Thank you.
Anything to announce at all, anything, even if like your kid's going off to school or whatever, I don't care. You've really done a really good job explaining this. You and I embody the same ideas. You're just way better explaining it than I am, which is
thank you, but recognize the opportunity we have here. Everyone's doing this the wrong way. They're talking about prosperity in numbers. Don't insult prosperity and freedom with numbers. Talk about what could be, how we could live. And people will start to grasp, and we'll change a few minds, and a few minds change. It compounds. It does.
It does. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I don't have the greatest leadership here in the world, but me and the hundreds of people who do what I do collectively, I think we're changing the minds of America. I hope so.
Darn right.
And damn, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing too. Thank you. So here's your book. We're going to put a link to it on our blog on to Amazon. There you go. It's The Deficit Delusion. And John Tamnny, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. What a treat.
You'll take care. Thanks to John Tamnny for joining us there. That's what my generation used to call a brilliant son of a bitch. That's what that is. And I hope you got the gist of what he's talking about. It took me a while. I was reading through all this promotional material and stuff. I did not have time to read his book. Sorry. I'm interviewing like 8 people a week here, and most of them are authors. So I get through maybe 2 books. So give me some credit there. And I think did I announce them as Camby before we started there in the A block? My apologies if I did that. This is the Gymcast. This is part of the show. We got Brian Reisinger coming up after this. I got a few things that I got in my craw I want to talk about in the news. And so, and you know how this is. One of them, the first thing is that RFK Jr. appeared in front of the Senate today, where they grilled him like dogs, and about the fact that 1,000 people in Health and Human Services apparently signed a petition asking him to resign. And that's because apparently he's doing things that they're not the way they're not used to doing them. And that's terrible, isn't it? So for all the people who are complaining about this, now look, the jury's still out on RFK. I'm not going to sit here. I don't know if he's going to do a good job or not. I don't. And people say, he's against vaccines. No, he really isn't. He has an extremely complex take on all this. And I don't know if I agree with all of it either. But the thing is, I'm willing to give him a shot because this is what we know. The previous people failed miserably. COVID was a complete, utter failure as far as the CDC is concerned. I mean, complete. You couldn't get worse. And are all these people, are they signing these petitions because they're concerned for their jobs? First of all, why do 1,000 people work for the CDC anyway? Can anyone answer that question for me? I was talking, you heard one in an interview with Tamney. I said, and he agreed, there's 2.1 million non-military personnel that work for the federal government of the United States. You could fire half of them tomorrow and nothing would change at all. Nothing. Half of them. The 1,000 people signed a petition at the CDC. I bet you could fire 900 of them and everything would be fine. You wouldn't know. The public wouldn't notice the difference. They won't really want to notice the difference either. It's like, it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's like the people who work in the bureaucracy of the federal government, they seem to think that the trade-off is, well, I've got a really boring job, but the trade-off is you're never going to fire me ever or make any changes. That's the trade-off. No, it isn't. Nope, you're wrong. I mentioned this on the show numerous times. I've been fired in my 50 years of working almost a dozen times. It's like, get used to it. That's what I think. So if he wants to get rid of most of them, I'm fine with me. I don't care. All I know is that these people, our response to COVID was a miserable failure. There's no other way you can do it. And I got to be honest with you. And if you watch the show, and especially this goes back to my work at Calling News, I actually defended Fauci for the longest time. I did. It's like I thought, well, he's right. He's a scientist. He has nothing to do with public policy. He's just supposed to advise on science, and that was what he was doing. But it turns out he wasn't. And that was my take for the longest time. I basically believed him because I didn't see any reason why he would lie. I've finally figured out the reason he would lie because he's there for 37 years and he thinks he's God. That's why. It's the whole thing's terrible. And the other thing is too, people are saying that they're about canceling the COVID vaccines. Now, I've said this many times, and I'm going to say it again. I don't know about the original vaccines. I do not. I dabble in science, and I like to think I could understand that stuff, but I haven't seen any evidence, compelling evidence either way of their efficacy. I just haven't. But the boosters, we know for a fact that the boosters all failed. Well, I think they're up to 9 of them now. Cleveland Clinic, second largest medical organization in the United States, they did a survey of 50,000 of their patients, 50,000, and they concluded, you can look, this is a problem. You won't find this in the mainstream news because no one covered it, but this is public information. You will find out that they determined you are more likely to get COVID if you had a booster shot than if you didn't. And what's the point of the booster shots? To keep you from getting COVID, God damn it. That's the point. They completely, utterly failed. Totally. So if I'm going back to my work at Conk News, which is unfortunately now defunct. When I started there in the spring of 2020, for all practical purposes, the COVID lockdown started on March 10th, 2020. That was a Saturday, and I know for a fact, I remember that date distinctly because I was supposed to go to a very important event for a nonprofit organization that I've worked with. And at the last minute, they canceled it. And that Saturday, basically everything in America got canceled. Everything. That was the quote unquote start of the pandemic. If you have to get it down to one day. About in April at Conk News, we started doing, and they were just tests, but we did it for 6 weeks, 5 nights a week. We did a test of our own version of a 15, 20-minute newscast that we posted on YouTube, and they're no longer there. We pulled them down because they were tests. What we did it for about 6 weeks, so we did about 30 of them. So this is the next month, and I'm going through the data as the editor-in-chief of Conk News. I'm going through the data, both of the CDC website and the state of Minnesota website, because we're located here in Minneapolis. So I thought those are two reasonably good sources of information. And I'm going through the numbers, and I spent about 2-3 weeks. This is during April. By the first week of May, it was already obvious to me that COVID was a disease of the old and the sick. The only people really that were really affected by this were older people or people who were already ill. That was plainly obvious to me. This is after only 3 weeks of data, and I'm some guy sitting in Minneapolis at a desk. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, but still it was plainly obvious to me what was going on here. I've said this in retrospect now, but it was obvious even then. There were basically 4 parts to the pandemic. If you were over 70 years old, COVID was after you. COVID was going to kill you. And that was really true and probably still is. That's my guess. Yes, if you're over 70 years old, COVID is a real problem. You have to avoid it. If you're between 50 and 70, it depends. It depends on your health, on all sorts on various different factors, but that's an iffy zone. If you're under 50, there was basically no pandemic. And I know people did die. I know that. Matter of fact, I know 2 32-year-old people who were in perfect health who died of COVID, and they didn't even know each other. And they are both 32 years old. So I know this happened, but statistically, they were outliers, because the thing is, here's the thing you have to understand. The flu kills people too, and quite a lot. 40,000 people a year on average in the United States die from the flu. So it's not unusual that COVID would kill people, but statistically, like I said, compared to the flu, which is a pretty good benchmark, statistically, there's nothing was going on. And if you were under 20, absolutely nothing was going on. I think, if I'm right, I think the number of people in the United States under 20 who died of COVID was like 300, and there's 17. The last count I saw, there's 17 million of them, or 20 million, or something like that. I mean, it was statistically zero. So I'm looking at this data. I'm thinking, well, why don't they tell people this? And the question is, why didn't they? They didn't. They did not tell people this, and that was exactly what happened. And in retrospect now, basically everyone knows this, and Dr. Fauci is basically the doctor of death. He completely screwed this up, totally. So my thing, getting back to RFK, give the guy a chance. I don't know. I do not know if he'll be successful. I don't. But he can't do any worse than the previous people. He can't. They screwed this up absolutely royally. And the other thing I have to talk about here too, this has been my long standing speculation, is that I was saying right off the bat, this came out of the Wuhan lab, and people are saying, oh, no, you can't say that. No, this is bullshit. No, it turns out I was right. But the other thing that I've speculated on, I have no proof of this at all, this is entirely speculation, is that I think there's a possibility that not only did that get out of the Wuhan lab, but the Chinese let it out deliberately. I actually think there's a possibility, because you look at the Chinese and the way they think. They want to take over the world. They want to be the dominant superpower on the planet. They're willing to put in 100 years to do that. They actually literally have a 100-year plan. Matter of fact, I think Gordon Chang actually wrote a book called The 100-Year War or something like that. They have a 100-year plan of taking over the planet and with it the United States. So you look at them and the way they think, and they're thinking, well, okay, we have this virus. It's kind of deadly, but not really. It might kill a few people, it's kind of like the flu. Why don't we just let this out into the wild and see what the heck happens? Now they lost quite a few people by COVID too, and just like us, they lost mostly elderly people. But there's a 1.6 billion people in China. I don't even know if they care that much about their own citizens. That's the terrible thing. I don't know if they do. But it wouldn't occur. It wouldn't surprise me if they said, "Well, let's just put this on and see what happens." And of course, it was a test. If it was a test, we failed it miserably. Miserably. I mean, they completely manipulated the situation. If that's true, which is the reason, in retrospect, I think it might be. It looks like the situation is manipulated, and where's there smoke where there's fire? Or excuse me, it's like if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. That's the type of thing. That's the thing. So speaking of technology, if we're on that thing, Google dodged a massive lawsuit by the federal government here, who that sued them for antitrust, because the judges ruled in that case, and basically they got a slap on the wrist. So the idea was they're trying to figure out whether they were going to break up Google or Alphabet Incorporated, which is the parent company of Google. And you have to understand this. The Google search engine is 95% of Alphabet's total revenue. I'm not kidding, 95%. And this is the thing about Google. You can bitch and moan about them, and I do, but Sergey Brin and Larry Page took all that money they made and put into stuff that's completely not profitable. They don't make any money off of Gmail. As a matter of fact, the only other part of Alphabet that actually makes any considerable revenue is YouTube now, but that took them 10 years too. I mean, I've said this before. Google was the only company on the planet that could have bought YouTube and made it work. Otherwise, YouTube would have went out of business, because right now, it was not that much years ago, but literally 400 minutes of video is loaded up to YouTube every minute. I do not understand how they keep track of this stuff. I don't understand how the storage demands are absolutely enormous. And up to now, they've never erased anything, although they have announced now they're going to start doing that. Every single thing that's been loaded up to YouTube for the last 19 years, since 2006, is still there. I don't understand where they keep this stuff. I know they have data centers about the size of Taj Mahal. They build next to rivers because they're running nuclear power to run this. I mean, the infrastructure for this is mind-boggling. It is. But anyway, those are their only two revenue streams. They don't make money off of anything else. That Gmail you run, they don't make any money off of it at all. They used to run ads. Now they don't even do that. It's like, no, okay. The Android operating system, they give it away. There's a bunch of not restrictions, but requirements. Like you have to run Google search on and all that sort of stuff. But still, they give it away. And so you're a Samsung, they slaps a pretty interface on it, but still, it's not their operating system. They don't pay for it. Whereas, like, for example, every computer that runs Windows pays about $50 to Microsoft for Windows. So they don't charge for that. So Google doesn't charge for that either. I say Google here, I mean actually Alphabet, but yeah. So what happened was they were trying to decide a fairly neat way to do this, and the judge said, now Google also doesn't make any money off the Chrome web browser, which is by far the most used web browser on the planet, and also kind of sort of negates the whole government's argument, because Microsoft also owns the Edge web browser, which is a pretty good web browser in its own right. And they used to have Internet Explorer, which had by far they did the same the government did the same lawsuit basically 30 years ago, because they said that Microsoft had a monopoly giving the Internet Explorer web browser away for free. It came with your operating system. Now, that isn't the case with Chrome. You have to download Chrome. Chrome does not come in pre-installed on any other computers except for Chromebooks. And then, of course, they they run the operation. They own the operating system for Chromebooks too, and they give that away. It's like, see what's going on here. So the judge was trying to say, okay, let's take the Google web browser or the Chrome web browser away from them. And at the end of the day, that didn't happen either. So I mean, they got fined a little bit of money, and I guess they have to share data that they collect from Android and Chrome with their competitors, and that's about it. And I gotta admit, I think the judge did the right thing. I do, even though I'm not exactly a Google fan. I'm not, but still, yeah, it's like all these things, these parts are so interconnected, and they don't make money off of any of it. And so, what are you going to give away? What are you going to give Gmail to another party? What, so they can make it go bankrupt? I don't know. You know. All right, I don't talk about gossip here on this show very often, and because you can get it any other place, and that's like not my place. But turns out 78% of the American public doesn't care that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged. 78%. And no, of course they don't change. This is a problem with the entire entertainment business. They make assumptions about the American public that are patently wrong. And they've been doing this for 40 years, as far as I can tell, if not longer. Because I've been talking about this for a long time. But this was before polls was a big thing, like in the 1990s, 30 years ago. I'm thinking, I don't know if the public's really interested in some of this stuff. And it turns out they release it, and then it bombs amazingly. But Hollywood always has some excuse. Hollywood is still using COVID as an excuse for people not coming out to the movies. And John Nolte writes about this on Breitbart, and he's absolutely right. The movie business is in the dumpster, but mostly because they're putting out movies nobody wants to see. And now we've got it to the point where, like all the superhero movies, they were absolutely awful. From what I understand, the latest Fantastic Four movie is quite good. It's a legitimately good movie, but people didn't go to see it because they've burnt out. They've been in so many bad superhero movies, they don't want to go anymore. That seems to be the case. So now you have the public so disappointed they won't even go see a good movie. They won't. It's awful. It's terrible. Anyway, no. They don't. No one cares about Taylor Swift. I've been saying this for the longest time. Yeah, she has her extremely fervent fans, but I hate to say this, and I'm going to get crap for saying this. Basically, they're nuts. That's the deal. And with this touches on another thing, and I don't want to go into here because it'll take forever, about the fact that I'm seriously concerned that we have a mental health problem in the United States. I mean, there was a survey taken about 3-4 weeks ago, a major pollster, I can't remember which one, where 1/3 of the American adult public said they were described themselves as mentally handicapped or disfigured or mentally ill. 1/3, 1 out of every 3 people in the U.S. God. And I also wonder about some of the stuff going on in politics. I mean, some of this is so crazy that I've really seriously started to doubt people's mental health here. And the really funny thing is the leftists accuse the Republicans of being mentally ill. Of course they do, because that's what all mentally ill people that don't want to come to terms with their problem, they do. They turn around and say, no, you're the problem. Nope, no, sorry, not true. Finally, I need to address this on a personal level, and that is today it was announced that yesterday, Giorgio Armani, the Italian fashion designer, died at the age of 91. And this may surprise you, but this is actually has a little meaning to me because in the 1980s, when I was a young man, I lived my life completely, utterly upside down. I was extremely affluent in my 20s, and I wasn't brought up that way at all. I grew up in a working class rural household, and I made a lot of money, and I loved Armani suits, and I wore them all the time. I was a suit guy. And if you know anything about Armani's history, he really came to prominence in 1980 when he did all the clothes for the gigolos in Paul Schrader's movie American Gigolo, which was mostly Richard Gere. And first of all, it's a fantastic movie if you get a chance to watch it. It's 45 years old now. And Gere looks fantastic. And I remember watching that movie and thinking, I want some of those clothes. And I had the money and I went out and bought them. It's like, and so I don't, the Armani suits from the 80s and 90s are simply, I think, are the height to this day, the height of men's fashion. I still think that now, you could say I'm an old guy, but you know what I really don't like? Tommy Hilfiger tried to do this now basically like starting around 2010 with the James Bond movies and Daniel Craig, when he just started designing Daniel Craig's clothes for James Bond. And I think they're emasculating. I think it's kind of stupid. I call them toy suits. I mean, he completely changed the cut. Now, granted, it was monumental. I mean, now most men's suits you buy off the rack look like this, but he completely changed the cut of what was the traditional men's suit. It's shorter. The V neck is stuck farther up, and I don't like it. I don't. And the thing is, unless you're going to get your clothes like actually custom tailored, this is pretty much all you can buy now. So I gotta admit, I don't like it at all. I think, and yeah, I'm an old fart. Yeah, you can tell me. And I no longer have the money to buy that stuff. Like I said, I lived my life completely backwards. Yeah, I had plenty of money in my 20s. No, not anymore. Okay, all right, Jim. Yeah, you got it going on. Yeah, all right, folks. So what happens now? Now we're gonna talk to BRIAN Reisinger. So he's come up in 12 seconds. Stay tuned. Joining us from his office in the Sacramento area of California, BRIAN Reisinger, author, family farmer, and the author of the new paperback version of Land Rich, Cash Poor. I got that. I'm going to put this on the screen right here. I guess your paperback looks exactly like your hardcover, but there you go, BRIAN.
It does. We got the chance to update some reviews and things like that, but we couldn't get rid of that tractor and the dust flying. That was just too true,
Yeah. Did you get a chance to update the book at all, or did you want to, or?
Yeah, we made a few small technical changes, like I had a reader point out to me something about a river that I'd written about that I hadn't realized. So really small things, but nothing has changed other than that. But we had a couple things. We added a family tree because, as you know, we tell the story from my great-grandparents in the Great Depression on up through today, stories of survival. So a family tree gives people a little bit of sense of like those 4 generations.
Yeah.
And other than that, we added some reviews and the award seal on the cover and things like that make a farm boy feel good,
Well, you were on a month ago, but for the people who missed it last time, you want to give just a basic summary of what the book's about?
Yeah, so Land Rich, Cash Poor basically weaves the hidden history of our disappearing farms. Why are our farms disappearing in this country, and what impact does that have on our food, our health, our economy, our culture? And then it weaves that with my family's story, 4 generations, from the time my great-grandfather founded the farm on up through my grandpa surviving the Depression, my mom and dad through the farm crisis, so on through to today. And so we go back and forth between investigating the reasons our farms are disappearing and weaving that with my family's story, from weather to economic upheaval and everything in between.
Well, let's be a little precise here. It's not that farms are disappearing, family farms are disappearing, right? The corporate farm thing is running full steam, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Since the height in our country of the number of farms that we once had, we've lost 70% of our farms. We've lost 45,000 farms on average per year, and those have been family farms. Now, the good news is that we have nearly 2 million farms left, and 88% of them are small family farms, and that amazes people. But it's people that are working multiple jobs to keep those farms going. And It is true that more and more of our food is produced by larger operations as we've lost a lot of those family operations.
It is another guest pointed this out to me a couple of weeks ago, and I think there's something to this. I think it applies to what you're writing about, and that is, as the world gets bigger and corporations get bigger, things become more efficient, but they also become, I don't know, lack of a better term, they're heart deadening. Most large corporations don't have any stake, or the employees don't have any stake really in what they're doing, at least relatively speaking. And that's a terrible thing for me to say, but I think it's probably maybe true. But what's your opinion on that?
Well, there's balance to all these things, and there's trade-offs, like you say. And what's been happening in farming is farms have been having that pressure, that relentless pressure to get bigger, get out for decades now. And that's because economic crises, things our government has done, technology, all kinds of issues. But that relentless push toward get bigger, get out forces these farms to get bigger to survive, or they got to get out. And others have been creatively finding ways to survive, but it's getting harder and harder. Now, the issue that farms face, I got to be honest with you, whatever the size of the farm, they are chasing the agribusiness companies. They got bigger chasing the food companies. They got bigger chasing the rest of the American economy, which is why I really like the way you asked that about how this has been happening across the economy. The reality is that most farmers, whatever their size, are the little guy relative to the people that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And we've got this issue all across our economy where our industries are dominated by very large corporations. And you're right about that balance. We have investigated this in the book. As organizations get bigger, they can find some efficiencies, maybe bring some prices down, but there are trade-offs. And here's something that happened, and we see this in agriculture. The trade-offs in food and agriculture are clear, where sometimes even the economics don't help. You get more efficient as you get bigger to a point, but after a while you get bureaucratic, you get slower moving, you get less innovative, and you start kind of protecting what you have instead of finding a way to innovate in new ways. So we need businesses of all sizes, large, medium, and small, in our economy, because they all bring something to the table. And in farming, it just got harder and harder for new small farms to come in and bring more of that entrepreneurial spirit. It's not a good thing for any industry, whether you like big or small companies, to not have that constantly churning and entrepreneurship be part of it. Now, it is still in farming, but we've been losing it. And that's the precious thing that we've got to make sure we try to protect.
Yeah, I told you the last time you were on about the fact that my wife has a cousin who farms in Iowa, and he has 400 acres and he farms mostly corn and soybeans. He runs the whole farm with him and one other person. It's, I mean, the automation's really freaking amazing. I'm a computer guy, and it's, I mean, I don't, you know about this, but he has a combine that will do 24 rows of corn at a time, both planted and harvested. And once he makes one pass with the combine through his field, at that point he can literally just set GPS, and he says he sits in the cab and reads a book.
Here's the amazing thing. A farm of that size, about 400 acres, at one time in the 70s and 80s, that would have been a pretty good medium-sized farm, maybe a little larger. Now it's really a medium to small-size farm.
Yeah, I understand that.
And it's because the industry's been shifting. And so, that relative of yours is a great example of a hardworking individual entrepreneur who's a very small business in the whole scheme of American food and agriculture. We got to make sure that there's a way for the farms that are medium-sized to small-sized, as well as the large ones, to be able to try to find a way to make it. And that's been the challenge. And it's getting harder and harder for farms to do that if they don't just get bigger to kind of an endless degree.
I asked you this the last time you were on, but do you think the government's actually trying to push family farms out?
Yeah, they don't like to state that, but I think that's been the case for the federal government for decades now, under both parties, honestly, the establishment of the Republican Party as well as the Democrats.
Right.
Both parties have. And actually, there was a time, this is a little bit shocking, there was a time in the 50s and the 60s where that was the stated policy. They said, we got to get these farms bigger because they got to produce more food more efficiently. Now, there's something to be said for earlier in our history, and we uncover times like this in my family and the hidden areas of history in the book. There's something to be said for, at some point, we needed farms to get a little bigger, take on more acreage or more animals so that we could supply our food with fewer people breaking their backs to do it. That's why you don't want to have everyone having the farm in a country. You want to go from agrarian to industrial. But when you're in the 50s and 60s and you got an industrial manufacturing economy and you got a rich, economy of small farmers supplying our food, and you're tilting it toward bigger farms just because you want to get only that efficiency, but you're not thinking about quality, you're not thinking about anything else, you're going to have trouble. And that's what happened. It got away from our country. And now the reality is that, we actually need small farms and medium-sized farms to be part of the mix to help with food prices now, because food prices got lower and lower as the industry got bigger. But during COVID and bird flu, we saw how we got these really consolidated industries and one big distribution center going down. And all of a sudden, you've got a shortage of whatever that food is. That's why food prices spiked after COVID, after bird flu. And this happens all the time. Our prices are constantly spiking because of the vulnerabilities to our supply chain. So we need a lot of small farmers supplying food, getting to the American dinner table in a lot of different ways. They lost sight of that throughout most of the 20th century. And our government, in some ways without realizing it, in some ways maybe realizing it, has been making the problem worse.
I do the shopping for our family, and is that happening right now? Because I know the government wants to tell me food prices are going down, but I don't see it yet. Now I'm in Minneapolis. I'm in the smack in the middle of the continent. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Transportation does or anything, but so far I'm not seeing it. Uh, is that
It can depend as you get into more affluent areas, and maybe hasn't. But the other thing is it's hard to bring them down once they've gone up. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like
right?
ringing a bell. You know what I mean? How do you unring that? And so the reality is that food prices have been going up for a long time because of the big problems that we're talking about here. More recently, it was COVID that caused it, and then bird flu piled on, government spending, and all kinds of other issues of the past decade piled onto that. And now, some people may argue, okay, well, now there are policies in place with the federal government. They're going to help with inflation. Others would say the other, you can have the political fight, but even if there are things that you think are helping with inflation, the reality is that bell's been rung and those food prices are high. And what we got to do is figure out a way to keep them from getting higher. And maybe sometimes they can settle back,
Yeah. No, I understand the fact you're right. Hardly anything that ever goes up comes down. I understand that. But right now, at least my observation is here in the heartland, it's still going up. But that's just me. What you were talking about the fact that the government favoring in the 50s large farms for maybe no particular reason. In some ways, that's an analogy for almost everything.
That's right. It became the easy answer. It was helping with low prices for a while, and people are like, well, geez, so like let's get the companies in all industries getting bigger because that helps with prices. It does help with prices for a while, but after a while, it doesn't help with prices anymore. In the meantime, you got all these other trade-offs, less choices, maybe less healthy, all kinds of issues that come up.
What do you say to people who say that maybe family farms get too much help? I personally don't think that, because the thing is, what people don't understand is that you guys are dealing with the weather. So it's a highly risky business, So, I mean, first of all, can you explain to me some of the financial assistance or breaks that the government gives family farms just to make up for that? How's that work?
Yeah, to be clear, the farm program in this country and the thousands of programs that are involved in it is something that I think, a lot of people can agree on. They don't like the right, the left, people inside farming, people outside farming. A lot of people, it's really a bad situation. But
is that because there's too many of them?
It's part of it. It's because we have piled them on year after year, decade after decade, really since the Great Depression, without really ever properly, fully reforming them. And so here's what we have. We have a whole bunch of programs that don't work anymore. We got a whole bunch of programs that are contradictory to one another. And then we got all kinds of programs that are prone to favoritism and abuse. And so what's happening is, I think it is accurate and fair for the American taxpayer to look around and say, where's my tax dollars going? Right. And the American small family farmer to look around and say, where's that assistance? Where's that support that was supposedly coming? Yeah. Now, a way to rationally move forward is this. We can have less programs, and we can find a way to make sure that the ones that are working continue, the ones that aren't are gotten rid of. We can bring the cost down. The one argument that exists for some level of government intervention, which is something that a lot of farmers really don't like in many, many ways. The one argument for it is the uncontrollable weather factor. So the idea is, like crop insurance, for instance, like farmer pays into it. Maybe the government supports that program in some way so it has some stability, so that the industry goes, because if we have a huge weather event and an industry goes belly up, that's problematic. But if we've got an insurance program and there's a huge weather event, nobody can help it. It drives the price down below a certain level, the farmer's insurance kicks in. That kind of thing can make some sense. But we have so many things beyond that. We have so many industries getting picked as winners and losers and all kinds of issues, and programs not working and boondoggles and taxpayer money going to waste. We got to deal with all that.
I find this kind of fascinating because, you're absolutely right about the fact that I'm sure farmers appreciate the weather insurance, but on the other hand, I think what you just alluded to is that they are naturally conservative by nature. And that's partly, I don't know if you've ever followed population densities literally over the millennia, but the general thing is, if you live out in the middle of nowhere, you're generally conservative, because I think I don't know, is it because you have to be, or you're self-reliant? Is that the reason? You tell me.
It's a great question. It's one of the reasons that in politics, a lot of times people are fed up with politics, or they want to shake up the system too. But really what it comes down to, I think, is is people in rural areas learn to rely on themselves. There's so much that you have to be able to do yourself because you're far
Right.
away from others. And so that fits in there. But then also, look, they want to make sure they're spending their money wisely. It's a frugal way of life. I mean, there's all kinds of things. And the truth is that farmers, right, left, Republican, Democrat, they've fit all kinds of boxes over the years. I think what changes is our politics and the parties. I think our farmers have always kind of been just good, hardworking people trying to find a way to make a living.
Yeah.
And they don't like the powers that be, and they like to do things their own way,
It's kind of pretty much the perfect example of the uniparty, isn't it? It's the farmers against the government.
Yeah, that's about it.
Doesn't matter who's in power.
The farmer's always been fighting for his stake, and that's the way that it goes, whether they've had the Democratic label or the Republican label at different points in history.
Yeah. We talked about this the last time you were on too, and this really fascinates me, and people aren't really have to be aware of this, that basically the world has only had enough, or at least parts of the world have only had enough food for like the last 80 years. You go back the 15,000 years of civilization, basically humanity never had enough food ever, and now all of a sudden we have it. I think, and is that part of the push of the government from the 40s and 50s to say, well, let's make the farms bigger, because so we can, all of a sudden we discovered how to do this. And
they're terrified at that time, understandably so, in this sense of hunger. We got to be able to feed our people.
Right,
so I get that. But what happened is we lost control of the situation. And now we've actually taken it so far that we're endangering our food supply. Because think about this. We've got 45,000 farms a year that we're losing. Most of them are family farms. And that's happening at the same time that we're importing more food than ever. I'm going to use a number that was right in between the Biden and Trump administration, so people know I'm not being political. It was about $42.5 billion egg trade deficit that we had at that time. That means $42.5 billion more dollars in food we're importing than exporting. So think about that. We're wiping out our domestic food supply with our family farms going away at a clip of 45,000. We're importing more food than ever from foreign countries. That reads like a doomsday thriller movie plot. That is like an Armageddon type thing to be doing. And we've got to change it.
It seems stupid as hell, really.
Yeah.
You wrote an article, or maybe it's more like an opinion piece I read it on Yahoo. I don't know who you wrote it for, about the fact that you're basically your sister, and we talked about this the last time too. Your sister Molly is basically taking over the farm. You help out, but it's her deal. And you were talking about feminism and farming, which I find kind of fascinating, because I mean, forgive my colloquialism, but she must be some pretty tough broad. I mean, it's like
I think she'd appreciate that. She absolutely is. And she's from a long line. And here's the thing that blew my mind. People talk about feminism, very politicized thing, but what I mean by it is just strong, independent women that have been finding a way forward. And the thing that was amazing that I learned as I was not only following my sister, but my grandma, my great grandma, is these are strong, independent women that were doing the work of men for generations. So you think about Rosie the Riveter during World War II, when men were shipped off to war and when women came in and handled the industrial jobs. Right. A lot of the women who were doing that, not all, but a lot of them were rural women who came from farms who were able to do the work of men. And we lost that as our economy and our culture shifted from rural to urban. And as we began to have our farms struggling so much, while you had female trailblazers in medicine and corporate America and academia, nobody was talking about the fact that women had been blazing a trail in farmland for decades. And the women that had been doing that, they had their head down, they were getting their work done, trying to help the farm survive. Right. So there's kind of unsung independent female farmer that's a really strong thing in our country. My sister is the most recent example. And I'll tell you, I've done call-in shows where they all of a sudden they ask me about my sister. I start telling her story and the boards just light up, man, because they want to talk about her. They want to know. And as you say, she's working to take over the farm from my dad. I didn't have my dad's talent for cattle and crops. I maybe had a little bit, I hope a little more talent for words and writing than cattle and crops. And so, I pursued a writing career while my sister worked to take over the farm. I've come full circle. I help out on the business side and they throw me in a tractor when I'm there. But my role is to really tell our story and look to find solutions. Right. And I'm in my sister every day.
Yeah, but and the thing is, and we were talking about this before too. I was also expected to take over my family business, and I didn't. And there's two ways to look at this. One is I applaud you for coming to terms with the fact that it wasn't your main talent. That's the thing. People figure out their places. And so at some point, your sister decided, I am really good at this, or people told her, she got that sort of, and you conversely, you looked around and said, this is not for me. This is not how I can make a contribution, but yet you're still contributing, I just think it's a testament to the human spirit that somebody, and in this case, I hate to be sexist, a woman would say, no, this is my place, this is my job, I'm going to do this.
It was a really proud moment for us all, and I appreciate what you're saying. I wrestled with it. I mean, I think if me and my dad, I was the first eldest son in 4 generations not to carry the farm forward,
right?
And I think if my dad and I both had a magic wand, I mean, he was proud of me and supportive, and I always loved my roots and where I was from. And I think farming is the highest profession. But if we both had a magic wand and could make me have the talents he had, I think we would wave it. Either one of us would. But, it's just such an honor to see my sister carrying it forward and to be able to tell that story and try to raise the alarm bell of what's happening.
Have you ever given any thought as a writer as how that works? Because I've thought about this. I mean, about the fact that, people find their place, and sometimes that place is kind of unusual, or it's not what people are, or even the person who's doing the ascertaining is expecting. How does that work? Do you have any idea after years of thinking, writing, and in your cabin? It's like, any ideas at all?
I think it's a mystery. I think it comes to people as they try to just kind of figure out what leads you. And I don't know. I think if it was easy, maybe I ought to write a book about that. Maybe it'd be a bestseller,
Yeah. You got another book in you?
Yeah. I've got a lot of stories I want to tell about rural America. So we're looking at a number of things, and I've got a real desire to talk about what has happened, not just to our farms, but to our rural communities more broadly. Because
Brian, are they all nonfiction, or are you thinking some fiction stuff?
I've got nonfiction and fiction. Yeah. I wanted to start with Land Rich Cash Poor because I wanted to tell what I thought was a true story that had been missed in our country, really. But yeah, I'd love to. I plan to write both in my lifetime here. There's plenty of stories, and some of them need to be told with the facts. And then sometimes you need to imagine to be able to get at a deeper truth as well.
It's still work, man. It's
That's
like,
right.
Here's your book again. Here it is. We're going to put it up on our blog, a link to Amazon to order it. And you've had a Kindle version out for a while. And also you have an audio book, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've been out on hardcover and Kindle and audiobook for a year. We're out in paperback now. That's the new edition.
As of 2 days ago, right? Yeah.
That's right. And the audiobook, I'll tell you, that was a humbling experience for a farmer.
Did you read that? Did you read it? Oh, cool.
And I didn't know how that worked. I didn't know that they would ask me, but they said, this is such a deeply personal story. We think that the person who wrote it ought to read it. And so I went in, and I'll tell you, that was a 2-day emotional tour de force to tell a whole story of your family's history of the century, all the things we wrestle with, all the heartache and economic upheaval and other things, and good things too. But it was an interesting and emotional experience. And they told me they want to keep that in there because, then people really feel it the way that it was lived.
They do. I'm glad you did it. I think it's really important unless authors totally suck at reading or talking, I think they should read their own books. I really do think that. Brian, I can't thank you enough. I hope you come back again. Keep us informed of anything you got going on, or if you just want to come back and yak, that's fine too. I appreciate it.
Well, I enjoy it, Jim, and I appreciate you so much for all you do to shed light on these issues. So thank you.
Thank you very much. No, thank you. We'll talk to you, okay?
Take care.
Our thanks to Brian Reisinger for joining us there. His book is called Land Rich Land Rich Cash Poor, and it's out in paperback as of Tuesday, two days ago. And it's a fantastic book. Great guy. Love talking to him. He can go back anytime. He was back. He was on a month ago, so as we had him back for the paperback release. And also our thanks to JOHN TAMNY for joining us. His book is called The Deficit Delusion, and he's a brilliant guy. And nice talking to him too. I'm a lucky guy. I get to talk to stimulating people almost every day. It's pretty amazing. Really, it is. All right, tomorrow, we've never done Friday shows here. We haven't, but now we're running reruns on Friday night in our live time slot of 9 p.m. Eastern on all our platforms. And also, by the way, I did announce this. This happened over the vacation week. We are back on Facebook now. We have a page up, but I'm not going to give you the address because we're still talking to Facebook about what that's going to be, because we are Jim and Knight at every place we broadcast on the internet, and we were Jim and Knight at Facebook, and then they banned our page. And so now we're back, and I'm trying to get that address back. So I'm going back. So I can't right now, it's just a string of numbers, characters. So I'm not going to bother to give it to you, and we're going to put it on our blog yet. But we're back up and running. So why did I bring that up? I don't even know. About the fact that we were running best ofs on Friday. I don't know what's going to be, but yet we're going to Monday. Don Wilkie's joining us, and his book is called Freedom Revealed. Tuesdays we have the guys from the Ukraine show. That's Jonathan Lockwood, Ivan Kirchenko, and Sasha Starr. Ivan's in the Ukraine. Sasha's in Toronto, but he's from Ukraine, and Jonathan Lockwood is our regular military strategist here on Jim Peters at Night. So that's on Tuesday. Wednesday we're taking off because I'm attending my 100-year-old mother. 101, excuse me. Yeah, she had her birthday recently. You know what? I learned that there are no milestone birthdays for 101, so I bought her a birthday for one. I'm reading it. It's pretty much the same. For a baby, old person, it all works. And Thursday, Tim Conway, our old friend, former executive editor of Hustler Magazine, he'll be with us to talk about lifetimes. Oh, the one thing I also want to talk about, another thing we accomplished during the vacation week, is we now have shorts up all over the place. You go to YouTube. We post shorts. We're posting shorts, a couple of shorts from almost every show. And they're all from the interviews. Of course, nobody wants to hear me babble. So that we got that going on, and I'm really happy about that. And I'm astonished at how many people are watching it. Until recently, we haven't had any real viewership on YouTube to speak of, and that's because I think they shadow banned me because I don't like climate change, and I think they figured that out early on. So we've never really had any viewership, but that has in the last month or so. It's finally kicked up a little bit. I think maybe the ban is off. I don't know. All I know is we post these shorts on YouTube. We got 950 people who watch them in an hour. It's unbelievable. I knew this. Everyone's telling me you got to do this, and I realized, yeah, I do, but I didn't realize what the viewership was going to be of these little 2-3 minute segments. And we're on TikTok now too, at Jim and Knight. We're at Jim and Knight. That's where we're at everywhere. And we're going to be broadcasting at some point. We're going to be broadcasting live on TikTok, the live show, the 9:00 show. We have to jump through a few hoops at TikTok to do that. So we're not quite ready for that. Excuse me. But that's coming up. So I'm astonished at the number. Well, here's the statistic, folks. There's 340 million people in America. Half of America, 170 million people are on TikTok. Half of America. 1 out of every 2 people in America, you walk down the street, you can point at half of them, they're on TikTok. I just find this amazing. And it's the same thing there. We post these views. We haven't done any advertising, no promotion, nothing. We post these shorts within an hour, 250 people watch them. So it just blows my mind. Anyway, yeah. So that's what we got going on here. So we're off till Monday. Don Wilkie be joining us on Monday. I can't thank you folks enough for watching. Like I said, I got done with Tamney today, and I thought, God damn it, I'm a lucky guy. Who gets to talk to so many brilliant people? I hope you enjoy listening to this. I really do. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are. And good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you on Monday, folks. Take care.